Greetings, Earthlings. Joel at Earth Tools here, and it is winter, and we are going to set up a Berta two-stage snowblower out here in Warehouse 2. It's about 20 degrees, so you can see my breath and all that. We're actually snowed in right now. We have a huge snowstorm that just came through, so it's a good opportunity to break out one of these snowblowers. And I've never done a setup video for one of these, so we're going to get that accomplished. So what I did to get this out of the box, we just flipped the box over after opening the top and kind of slid the snowblower out. That saves you the effort of lifting it out, obviously. But the other thing you can do, of course, is just slit the corners of the box and fold the box down and just work on it that way. But I wanted to reuse this box because I may have to ship this thing someday. At any rate, this is what you're going to see when you open it up, the Berta snowblower body. There's the chute, the upper discharge chute. There is the bracketry that holds the crank handle in place on the tractor handlebar, and then the crank handle itself that's going to extend down to twist the chute around. Also included are a set of skids which alternate with the wheels that are on these little stands here. For shipping, they've flipped these things upside down so the wheels are up in the air. Obviously, they're not doing much good now. But the point is, if you're using the thing on paved surfaces, the wheels obviously don't scrape along and make scrape marks on your concrete or asphalt. They roll very nicely because they're a non-marring wheel with ball bearings. But if you're on gravel and these things don't roll very well, you take out this bolt and switch it over to the skid, which slides like a sled runner, basically. So you have your choice. Obviously, when you're using these, like I said, they're flipped over so they're inserted from the bottom up, and then this pin is to adjust your height. There's 4 adjustments for height positions to move the snowblower up or down. So if you're on gravel and you don't want to scrape all the way down to the ground, because you don't want to scrape your gravel away, obviously you can elevate the machine slightly to deal with that. So that's what those are all about. These things strapped to the top are somewhat important. These are some tools that Berta gives you. These 2 tools here, a 10mm combination wrench and a kind of extended socket deal. They've welded a little 10mm socket onto the end of this. These tools are necessary for changing the shear bolt in the second stage impeller. That is, a 2-stage snowblower, of course, has 2 stages. One stage being the auger in the front, the second stage being the impeller in the back, which is like a big fan that actually throws the snow. So this goes about, 300 RPMs. The one in the back goes more like 1,000 RPMs to really get the loft on the snow. Each one has shear bolts. The shear bolts for these augers are here. We've got shear bolts here and here for the augers. And on the second stage impeller, we're not going to be able to see it, but there is a shear bolt. Well, there it is. It's right there. Yeah, right there. Anyway, if you ever break that shear bolt, which is less likely, usually if you're going to break a shear bolt, it's going to be on the augers. But this long extended thing allows you to get down in here to get to that shear bolt. Now, of course, if you have a socket set with a bunch of extensions, you can get down in there too, but they give you this tool just in case you don't have a socket set. So the wrench goes in the back to hold the nut, and then the extension goes in from the front. So that allows you to get to the thing. And they give you a few extra shear bolts in this hardware bag. There's a couple for each, the second or the impeller and the augers. So they equip you, and then of course you can buy more as needed. Now the other thing that's here, I'm going to cut these off. I saw Carl here a minute ago. He's the shop cat. He likes to come and make cameos. That thing, lay these tools aside. This is in case the neighbor's dog comes, you can knock him on the head. Actually, what it's really for is if you get a big clog because of ice, if you're blowing a bunch of slush and ice, if your discharge chute gets clogged, they want you to use this to ram it out. They don't want you to stick your hand down in there because, if it's rotating, you would get hurt. Obviously, with all the safeties on tractors these days, you can't walk away from the handlebars and let this thing run anyway. But as per European safety regulations, they give you this stick. So you can whack your nosy neighbor, or you can use it to clean out the chute. Your choice. There it is. Here's the owner's manual. We'll take that and lay it aside. Okay, so let's get the chute in place. Point out this thing is absolutely built like a tank. The sides are like 1/8-inch plate steel. The bottom scoop where it scoops up the snow off the ground is like 3/8-inch thick steel. The thing is just absolutely bulletproof. There's a grease fitting even on the little crank where you have this screw crank to crank the chute around. Compared to any snowblower on the market, I've never seen one built as well as this thing. It's just incredible. So what they've got here are these little kind of nylon clips that are going to hold, they're going to go under this lip and hold this in place. Now they've pre-greased this. This thing's greasy, yuck. And we're going to take one of these clips off. Let's see, this is usually loose. Yeah, I guess several are loose. You really just have to take one off to get this thing on there. You have to slip it into place and then get the one clamp in where to hold it in place in the bottom. Oh yeah, they actually thread the holes. I forgot about that. Berta is so meticulous about everything. So the holes are threaded up through this plate and then you put the nuts on the top, making it super secure. So there's no chance of it rattling off of there during use. So got that. So actually what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these. Yeah, that looks good. Make sure these are tight and tighten down these top nuts. It's a lot easier to get to these before I put the thing together. So I don't have to operate down there in the pinched area. I'm going to bring these nuts down on the top to jam nut these bolts in place. Now the reason that some of these, if you notice, have an extended bolt with some extra nuts built onto it here, you have that on both of these, those act as the rotation stops to keep you from cranking the chute around too far so you don't blow snow back into your own face. So obviously you would be kind of silly to do that, but you know, when you're not paying attention and whatever and it's cold and you're not thinking well, all of a sudden you got a face full of snow because you cranked it around too far. So that's the safety mechanism they give you, is just having those things there. And of course, you know, if you wanted to, if you really had some weird angle you needed to achieve in terms of blowing it like back over your shoulder, you could always, you know, take out one of these bolts so that it would crank around a little bit more. That is, you would take the nuts out so you could run the bolt all the way up, and then the stop simply wouldn't be there anymore. But it's not super recommended to do that. Berta has also made these nylon deals at a bit of a slant, and what this allows you to do is as things wear over time and the chute would get a little floppy here, you can actually loosen up this nut, draw the thing down more to kind of flatten it out, which moves the clamp up. So it gives you some adjustability for wear on these things. I mean, the design Berta puts into these things is just amazing. All right, I'm gonna get this on here. I want to get those hooked over. Well, here I thought I was saving time, but I was actually premature. There was a reason that Berta left those things loose, darn it. It's because at the angle that you need to put these things on at, there's not enough room to get it over the lip. So I've got to back these back off. So I would have known that had I done this before, but this is my first Berta two-stage that we put together. Here in Kentucky, you just don't get much of a chance to use a two-stage snowblower. In fact, we hardly get a chance to use a snowblower at all. I haven't used a snowblower here in 15 years probably. So, off a bit. So I'm gonna have no choice but to go and tighten these when they're down there, but that's just life. Might have to loosen them up and leave it a little bit more. It's not wanting to go on there. So the, whoops, that one's a little too tight. Okay, let's give that a shot. The other thing I'll point out here is that there we go, all right. This deal right here, these brackets, are for the mounting of what we call the remote chute kit. The remote chute kit is an extra control system that has a cable that mounts up to the tractor handlebar, and the cable comes down here, hooks in here, and moves this flap at the end of the snowblower discharge chute up or down to control the loft of your snow. That kit is not, I repeat, not included with the snowblower, even though the owner's manual shows that kit. It doesn't say that the kit is standard equipment, it simply shows the kit because it's one of the options available for the thing. There's also like an optional set of skids shown in the owner's manual. Those aren't included either. They look different than the current skids. The fact is the owner's manual shows all the available options. That doesn't mean they all come with the machine. There's a lot of confusion about that. The remote chute kit is an option. It is something you pay extra for. We have it on our website. It's like, I don't know, $200, $250, something like this. It's a very nice system if you're having to adjust this a lot. Most people don't have to adjust this a lot. You move this thing manually. It just kind of stays where you put it. And you blow your snow, and if you need to make an adjustment when you're turning around at the end, you make your adjustment and go. But if if you're in a cramped situation where I need to like take the snow angle down so I don't hit my neighbor's building when I turn in this direction, then having this thing with the remote chute kit installed is a nice option. But it doesn't come standard. You have to purchase it separately, and it comes, we'll package it with it. We'll throw it in the box with the snowblower, but you just install it. It clamps on here with one bolt and couple nuts and you're good to go. Now when you put that on, what you do is you loosen these bolts up enough that the cable can easily move this thing. Right now these are cranked down, so it's very stiff. So anyway, let's get this all put together here. Crank this a little bit to get this away from our center stopping point here. All right, there we go. I'm not going to walk you through all the way putting all this on because you know what this is going to look like. Basically, you're just going to tighten all these into place. I'll get it on here just enough to get the nuts on, but I'll not do the tightening while on video here because I don't need to bore you any further. So I've taken long enough with this chute. Come on, baby. Okay. There we go. All right, we'll come back to that later. Okay. As I pointed out, there is a grease fitting on this thing, which is good to keep that lubricated over the years. The other thing you're going to want to grease, if the snowblower is equipped with a built-in quick coupling, which if you're buying this from Earth Tools and it's for a BCS or a Grillo G110, it's going to have a built-in quick coupling. The smaller Grillo machines don't have the bolt-on quick coupling. The quick coupling is just available as an option. But the point is, if you've got a built-in quick coupling, it's going to come dry. So make sure you put a little lubrication on it. And the snowblower flange here has a drop hole for the quick coupling mounting pin. So once your quick coupling slides in, it's got the spring-loaded pin that drops down in here to lock it in place. This is what's oriented up right now is actually a slightly ovalized hole. That is, this hole is wider than it is long. So when the pin drops in there, it's going to allow this snowblower to essentially float a little bit like this, which allows the snowblower to follow ground contours just slightly as you go along. That's nice because if you're going along and say your tractor wheel falls in a hole on one side, the snowblower doesn't cock, which would pick up one side off the ground and leave some snow over there. The snowblower can stay level while the tractor floats a little bit. So that floating deck is just like a floating deck on a lawnmower. It actually gives you better ground contact with the implement. Now, if you're in a condition for some reason that you don't want it to float, you can do away with this feature. The other side of this flange has a hole that's round instead of ovalized. So you can take this flange off with 4 nuts, flip it over 180 degrees and bolt it right back on, and you've got a round locking hole so it's solid. The same exact feature is on the Berta flail mowers. They come standard with a floating feature, but they have a locking that is a solid hole on the other side, or a round hole, I should say. All right, so the other thing is the safety bar. This bar in the front is to keep objects from getting into the front of the snowblower that you don't want to get into the snowblower, like dogs and crashing into cars and people and trees and things like that. So you'll take out these 2 extra nuts they give you for the bolts here, swing this thing down, get the bolts into the holes. There we go. They're carriage bolts, so it's a square-headed deal that just locks into a square hole in the casting, so you don't need 2 wrenches, you just need one 17mm wrench. There we go. Okay. This over here. So there is oil in the gearbox of the Berta snowblower. In the center here, there's a check plug right here that's actually painted with red paint. You can barely see it in the bad light conditions, but this bolt right here, it's the one that's kind of closer to the center of the shaft. That's oriented at the halfway point of that gearbox. So they come from the factory filled properly with oil, but once a year you should check the oil level with the snowblower sitting level, so the way it would on a tractor. Take that plug out. If oil seeps out the hole, you're good because the oil is halfway up the gearbox, which is exactly where you want it. If it doesn't seep out, get some 90-weight gear oil and squirt a little in the hole until it runs back out. When it runs back out the hole, it's filled properly. So that's that. There are bearings at the ends here, but those are permanently sealed bearings. You don't have to worry about those. They're carrying the ends of those auger shafts. Okay, now we are going to go ahead and put these skids on because we're going to be operating this thing on a gravel driveway. But I don't need to make you see that on video. I've already explained that. I can do that on video. The other thing we're going to do is mount the snowblower crank arm to get that mounted up to the tractor handlebars. So unwrap this thing. Good Italian shrink wrap here. Maybe. Hey, it was doing so good unwrapping. There we go. All right. So, bottom end has a steel U-joint in it. Basically a permanent fixture, not like the ones on some other snow blowers, which are easy to lose or break. So, let's see, grab my... Oh, look, we get to use the Berta tools. Take out the 10mm bolts. This Thing's going to slide into place here. Find where the bolt hole is. Hello. Be right there. There we go. Doesn't have to be super tight. It's a lock nut, so it's going to stay on there. So that part can just kind of stay with the snowblower forever. The upper part is adjustable. You've got a bunch of different holes going up and down this thing, so depending on how far it needs to extend to reach your tractor handlebars, you can kind of be the judge of that once you get it mounted to your tractor. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this thing around and get the tractor mounted on. This is actually going to be a little more difficult because I don't have the skids on there and holding up the back end of the snowblower. So I'm going to go ahead and flip these over so that I can hold up this tail end, because otherwise it's going to be a real pain. Whoop. That's not a handle. They got in two different holes. Yes. Yep, same hole, helps a lot. You got 2 holes on the yellow housing and like 4 holes on the gray post. So it gives you a total of 8 different positions because the spacing is slightly different between the holes. So now I can roll this thing around. Hey, the rollers are great. So I'm gonna get this off to the side. Now normally when putting on an implement, I like to turn the handlebars around to the implement side of the machine. But you can't really do that because the chute gets in the way. So you just have to go on forward, which is kind of a pain because it's hard to see what you're doing. But we'll do our best. Put it on our old BCS 749 here. It's about beat half to death. It's not too bad. Yeah, that actually was, luckily our quick coupling is nice and worn, so it drops in there. Now notice I had to wiggle it a little to get the quick coupling pin to drop all the way. It didn't want to drop here, but now it dropped all the way. So we're attached, that's good. Now we're going to figure out where we want our clamp. You just sort of eyeball things, figure out where you want it. Well, I'm just going to put it right in the center here, so we'll get this clamp. Ooh, no, I can't do that. It's got to be oriented forward and back. So yeah, I'll get it right around here. And then I can always curve this in a little bit. So get our nuts and bolts out here. Okay. There, looks pretty good. These cables are almost right in the way, but you can get around them. Now, if you have the remote chute kit, for moving the chute flap up and down, that becomes a little busy here, but you can always put one on one handlebar and one on the other and spread things around. You can move this further up. The BCS hydro units are a little more cluttered because there's more controls on them, but we've managed to get them on there, or at least some of our customers have. Okay, so those, I'm gonna just kind of keep those not quite cranked down yet. The next thing is this top bolt, and this is for this ball. This is a slightly spherical bend on these two clamps, and so as they clamp together, they sort of hold this ball on both ends. You have to have enough. I might have to loosen this one up more a little bit. Crank this down prematurely. I need a little bit of flex here so that I can get this ball in there in the first place. There we go. Now I'll crank this down and then cinch down the top one. Now you don't want to cinch it so much that the ball can't move at all. The ball has to be able to rotate a little bit, so if you have to offset your handlebars right or left to get around obstacles or whatever, that you have some flex here. This ball can flex just slightly. So, but it lets it orient in essentially any direction. There we go. The ball can flex. It's perfect. Now we'll take out this bolt nut here, get this thing down in here, and I'm going to go ahead. This is a tractor with fairly long handlebars, so I'm going to get it in the longest position here. Whoops, that was dumb. Didn't have my nut ready, or my bolt rather. Yeah, that should work. So, going forward, if this thing doesn't bother you being on the tractor, for the rest of the year for mowing and tilling and other operations, you can just leave this in place. By taking out this one nut and bolt here, you do just what I did here. You slide this upper part of the rod out, which releases the lower part of the rod from the tractor. Then when you take the snowblower off, the lower part of the rod just stays with the snowblower. The ball and this bracket just stay on the tractor. If it gets in the way, fine, loosen up the two bolts and get it out of the way. Oh, I've got to get another 8mm wrench. So the tools I've used are a couple 8mm wrenches, a couple 10mm wrenches, and a 17mm wrench. And this whole thing has gone together. So, actually, you'll need two 17mm wrenches to put the skids on. There you are. Now, I'm going to crank this bugger around, and the stops keep it from going any further than that. As you can see, the snowblower snoot is a little loose, which is why it moved a little extra at the end there. Yeah, it kind of has that cock to it, but I haven't cranked it down yet. So, now we're going to go outside and blow some snow. That's the next video. Thanks for watching.